Welcome to Wellness Big Sis, the pod, a by Maven media production, where we believe you deserve real education from real experts delivered in a way you can actually use. I'm Dr. Kelsy Vick, your board-certified orthopedic doctor of physical therapy, and this podcast was built for the girl who is done feeling overwhelmed and frustrated by conflicting health noise and is ready for something she can actually trust. Every week, we have honest, science-backed conversations about your health, your hormones, your brain, your body, and everything in between. No fluff, no fear-mongering, just the truth. Because understanding your body is the most powerful thing you can do for yourself. A table full of experts built for the curious girl who wants the truth. So welcome. Your seat is waiting for you. There's a literal cleaning crew that comes into your brain every single night. They work the night shift. They clear out the metabolic waste, the toxic compounds, the byproducts of a full day of thinking, feeling, and just being alive. When you sleep, they finish the job. When you don't, they clock out early. Every single symptom that you might attribute to stress or hormones or just being overwhelmed has a brain cleanliness component. These are not character flaws. They are the downstream effects of a cleaning system that didn't have enough time or the right conditions to actually do its job. You know that feeling after a bad night's sleep where you can't think clearly, everything's a little foggy, you're more emotionally reactive and irritable? There's actually a biological reason for that. And it's not just tiredness. Your brain just didn't get as cleaned up last night. There's a literal cleaning crew that comes into your brain every single night. They work the night shift. They clear out the metabolic waste, the toxic compounds, the byproducts of a full day of thinking, feeling, and just being alive. When you sleep, they finish the job. When you don't, they clock out early. And you wake up to a brain that didn't get fully cleaned. And you feel it. You just never knew what to call it. Welcome back to Wellness Big Sis, the pod. I'm your host, Dr. Kelsy Vick, a board-certified orthopedic doctor of physical therapy and a pelvic floor physical therapist. And through the month of April, we are doing a spring cleaning series, not talking necessarily about home organization or cleaning out different parts of our house like we traditionally think for spring cleaning, more like a health and wellness body and brain style of spring cleaning. Last week, we talked about our lymphatic systems, which is the system in charge of how puffy, swollen, heavy you feel, in addition to how your immune system runs. It's related to jaw, lymphatic massage. We talk about a lot of different red flags that I see when people are talking about lymphatic system work so that you guys are more aware of what to look out for to know who actually knows and understands the lymphatic system and who is just sort of maybe posing as an expert. Today, we'll talk about a system that I'm going to guess majority of you guys have never even heard of. If you've been around Wellness Big Sis, the pod, 2 years ago, we covered this system, and today we're bringing it back because it is so freaking important. And that system is your glymphatic system. So like lymphatic, just with a G. And it is a system in charge of cleaning up your brain. So basically, the lymphatic system of your brain. Your brain is the one organ in your body without a traditional lymphatic system. Every other organ uses the lymphatic system that we covered last week to help manage waste. The brain, your most metabolically active organ in your body, burning more energy per unit of tissue than anything else, had to invent its own. And it was only discovered in 2012. And yes, it has a name that sounds made up, but it works almost exclusively while you sleep. Every single symptom that you might attribute to stress or hormones or just being overwhelmed has a brain cleanliness component. So this lymphatic system is a huge part of all of those symptoms that you might be experiencing. The brain fog, the emotional sensitivity, the memory lapses, the headaches, the difficulty concentrating. These are not character flaws. They are the downstream effects of a cleaning system that didn't have enough time or the right conditions to actually do its job. So what are the basic components of this glymphatic system? Our brain and nervous system has a circulating fluid that we call cerebrospinal fluid. Cerebro-brain, spinal cord, cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF for short. It has a lot of different functions, including helping to cushion the brain and the spinal cord. It acts as sort of the liquid that things float in to where we have a little bit of play. If our neck gets a whiplash injury or a concussion injury, or there might be some external trauma to our spinal region, it acts as that cushioning factor And it also acts as a mode of transportation for a lot of different chemicals, compounds, and waste within our bodies. Just like our lymphatic system, our glymphatic system is linked closely with our cardiovascular system, with the cerebrospinal fluid or CSF dumping waste products into the venous system to eventually get cleared out. And this whole system is primarily active when we sleep. Now, since this system has only been recently discovered in the grand scheme of things, 2012 sounds like a long time ago, but when we're talking about science and discovering an entirely new system of the body, 2012 is fairly recent. And because of that, a lot of the studies have started with animal models before they move into human models. So throughout this episode, I'll try and say which studies are related more to animal models and which ones are related more to human models. But just know there's a reason they study animal models first, and they use animals whose systems that they're studying are very similar to humans so that they can test in animals and infer what might happen in humans to eventually study in humans. So just because a lot of these studies will be animal studies doesn't necessarily mean we should disregard the information completely. It just means that, as a disclaimer, this has been studied in animals, not quite in humans, but knowing what we know about said animal's glymphatic system, we can infer that this is what happens in humans as well. This first fact does come from animal studies, and it's believed to translate to humans based on what we know about the human brain. But the spaces between our brain cells actually expand by about 60% during sleep, allowing that cerebrospinal fluid and that fluid to sort of weave in and out, picking up waste, collecting waste, and returning it back into the glymphatic system to eventually get rid of. And this reminded me of the phrase we all hear so much, but structure determines function. When we sleep, if our brain cells shrink in size, that means the space around them gets a little bit bigger, allowing for that cleaning, that waste removal to actually happen. When we're awake, they increase in size again, which, returning back to structure determines function, means that's the time that we need to use those brain cells. So they grow back to their normal size during the daytime. They shrink at night to allow that cleaning process to happen. And the stage of sleep that this cleansing happens in is one of the stages that we actually don't talk about very much. A lot of people have heard of REM sleep or rapid eye movement sleep. However, the deep sleep stage or the non-REM sleep stage is where the glymphatic system actually shines. This is the stage of sleep where it is the hardest to wake up. Your body feels heavy, but during this time, your brain's getting cleaned up. The glymphatic system exhibits its highest activity during higher delta wave activity in that deep, slow wave sleep stage. So if you're waking up tired despite having been in bed for 7 to 9 hours, this is likely why. Time in bed does not equal high glymphatic system efficiency. We have to make sure that we are hitting those cyclical stages during sleep, especially that non-REM sleep, in order for our glymphatic system to actually perform its job. And a lot of the things people do that they think might help sleep, scrolling their phone, taking sleeping pills, drinking alcohol to help wind down before bed, maybe trading what they think is quality sleep for a less efficient sleep where your glymphatic system isn't actually able to clean your brain efficiently. So what actually happens in this stage? And remember, a lot of these studies are from animal studies that are inferred to humans. But they've found that overall, the effectiveness of your glymphatic system depends on the quality of your deep sleep. And the quality of your deep sleep is actually controlled by fluctuations in norepinephrine and our brain's vasculature. So the more in alignment that these variables are, the better your brain will clear waste. They've also found that sleep aids like sleeping pills negatively affect these fluctuations of norepinephrine and our brain's vasculature during sleep. And both of those have been shown to also contribute to the effectiveness of your glymphatic system. So although you may be sedated with a sleeping aid, you aren't getting that restorative sleep where the actual brain cleaning happens. This was a cool study that I believe was recently published in 2026, I think January 2026. But they found that in adults who have good, high quality sleep, their bodies exhibit higher plasma levels of certain Alzheimer's biomarkers in the morning, which indicates the glymphatic system's effectiveness at moving waste out of the brain into the bloodstream to eventually be disposed of. On the flip side, when healthy young adults are actually deprived of good quality sleep, even for just one night, levels of one of the proteins associated with Alzheimer's increases by 25 to 30% in your cerebrospinal fluid. So even one bad night of sleep alters your brain chemistry, which is absolutely wild. So imagine years and years of that and that effect on memory loss, cognition, and your brain health. Speaking of Alzheimer's, a fun, maybe a not so fun fact is that women are actually at a higher risk of developing Alzheimer's than men, which makes the connection between the female glymphatic system, our hormones, and our sleep quality as women super important for us to understand. You might not just be dealing with sleep issues because of stress, it might actually be hormonally related. Now, given the glymphatic system's relatively recent discovery, you know the female-specific research is probably not quite there yet. They're still trying to figure out how all of it works. But here's what early research findings suggest when it comes to our female physiology and the glymphatic system. Based on a 2024 Alzheimer's review analyzing a lot of different studies, they noted that the link between estrogen, the glymphatic system, and sleep as 3 reasons women are disproportionately more affected by Alzheimer's than men. Brain imaging studies have also found the glymphatic system's overall efficiency changes around menopause. And if you missed our menopause episode maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, I will leave the link below. It talks all about menopause and what we can do in our 20s and 30s to help set ourselves up for success during menopause. I am a huge advocate for understanding what happens to our body. And I feel like we have so much information and education about cycle syncing, our periods, pregnancy, postpartum. But if you're like me, you think menopause is way out in the distance, when in reality, there are so many things we can do now to help our bodies when we reach that stage. So take a listen to that episode as a little side note. But knowing how much our bodies go through during menopause, all of the hormonal changes that happen, these brain imaging studies are also indicative that these hormonal changes that happen during menopause also affect our glymphatic systems and our sleep quality. So all of this female-specific research on the glymphatic system is still early, but what's super clear is that estrogen plays a role in our CSF dynamics, and sleep patterns are affected cyclically by our hormones. So what are some ways you can actually positively affect your glymphatic system both now and to keep in mind for in the future as well? Research has found that things like sleep position, alcohol intake, exercise, hydration, omega-3 consumption, and chronic stress all factor in to the efficiency of your glymphatic system, meaning your daily decisions, even from how much alcohol you drink, how stressed you are, if you're going to exercise that day, are directly influencing whether your glymphatic system works well or not. So how can we actually spring clean our brains to help out our glymphatic systems? Number 1, protect that deep sleep, that phase of sleep where your glymphatic system is the most active. The quality of your sleep matters more than the time in bed. So avoid things that suppress deep sleep, things like alcohol, blue light before bed, sleeping aids, maybe high cortisol activities before bed, something like exercising before bed might affect your quality of your deep sleep that night. You also want to enact things that actually support deep sleep, things like consistent sleep and wake times, which is one of the strongest drivers of sleep regularity, cooler room temps, and actually exercising. And stay tuned because next week we are actually going to do a deep dive on alcohol and its effects on the body. We can't not mention alcohol when it comes to spring cleaning because it affects so many things. And it's not going to be doom and gloom. I drink alcohol. I definitely love a cocktail, but it's going to be how can we be more mindful of alcohol's effects on our bodies and make choices based on the knowledge of how alcohol affects our bodies. So stay tuned for that episode next week. Another very interesting direction of research that they're going with this glymphatic system is also related to sleep position. So research published in the Journal of Neuroscience used brain imaging to measure glymphatic transport in different body positions and found that waist clearance was most effective during side sleeping. Multiple other studies have also confirmed this, but the researchers have noted one drawback. They are still drawing these inferences from animal studies. However, the reason behind side sleeping being more effective for our glymphatic system Makes sense with absolutely little to no drawbacks for the person who wants to try out different sleep positions to help with their glymphatic systems. So to be clear, this sleeping position research has not been tested in humans yet, but the mechanism behind why it works seems plausible. The risk of trying side sleeping is essentially zero, and most humans already naturally prefer it, which some researchers note that might not be a coincidence. Another thing you can do to support your glymphatic system is, of course, exercise. Exercise supports the glymphatic system both directly through blood flow and pressure dynamics within the brain, and indirectly by improving the quality of deep sleep that the glymphatic system relies on. And then lastly, this one's always easier said than done, but managing chronic stress. Chronic stress keeps norepinephrine levels elevated throughout the day and night. During healthy, deep sleep, norepinephrine should cycle rhythmically. That cycling pattern of norepinephrine is actually what helps drive glymphatic system function. And chronic stress disrupts that rhythm. So the result is that you might be in bed, technically asleep, but your brain's cleaning crew can't do its job because the conditions needed for efficient cleaning aren't being met. To wrap up, your brain invented its own cleaning system because it knew how important it was. It runs the night shift so that the day shift, you thinking, feeling, creating, connecting, making decisions, can run well. Every good sleep you get is your brain cleaning house. Every consistently disrupted night of sleep is leaving residue and waste behind. You can't feel that residue the first night necessarily, but over time, you'll notice it in how your brain just feels heavier, thinking a little less clear, and you being slightly more reactive. This might be one of the most convincing arguments I've heard for why we should all prioritize sleep. Of course, we know it helps in so many other aspects of our health and wellness, but knowing the effects of poor sleep on our brain's ability to actually clear out waste and toxins makes me that much more excited to prioritize sleep and prioritize things that can help me get a better quality of sleep. So I hope you guys enjoyed our spring cleaning episode over the glymphatic system. I'll leave the episode to the glymphatic system that we did 2 years ago when I first started the podcast. Give me a little grace in how it turned out because it was early on, which is why I wanted to circle back and do these episodes again, given all that I've learned in hosting a podcast and the newer research involved in all of the systems that we talk about with the human body. That's what's so freaking cool, is that we can constantly learn. Things are constantly changing. And I can't wait to bring this episode back again once more of the female-specific research comes into play with how we can positively impact our glymphatic systems, knowing how important they are to our brain health, and then also hopefully to decrease our risk of Alzheimer's disease. So super exciting stuff, but I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you guys again next week on Wellness Big Sis, the pod, as we cover alcohol.